I am somebody who became multicultural by choice. Like I could have stayed in Japan and not, stayed monocultural because that's how I grew up. I mean, I don't know, maybe I couldn't have because I couldn't have helped but to do it. But I think we're lucky to have this experience. Multicultural backgrounds are beautiful. You get to see the world in so many different ways, and it's you can see it as a challenge, but you can also see it as an opportunity. And I think that is what I want to invite people to do is like, what is the opportunity that we have uniquely because of who we are?
Episode 19, Determined to Build Confidence, with coach and communications expert Kuriko Wong. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to welcome today Ms. Kuriko Wong. She's a great communications expert who I met through the US-Japan Council. I admire her so much because she's incredibly well-spoken, and she grew up in Japan, but I'm blown away by the fact that she's built such an amazing career in such a language-intensive field when she came to the US when she was 16 years old. She's recently transitioned careers into coaching and is especially focused on building confidence in her clients. I'm looking forward to talking with her today about her upbringing, her identity, her incredible language skills and career in communications, and her passion for coaching. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Julie, for having me.
So first, I'd like to start by asking you where you're born and raised.
Yes, so I was born in Hamamatsu, Japan. So Hamamatsu is in Shizuoka Prefecture where Mount Fuji is. And I like to describe it as kind of the midpoint between Tokyo and Osaka on the Shinkansen bullet train line. So if you've ever been from Tokyo to Kyoto or Osaka, you've passed through Hamamatsu.
That's really great. I had the opportunity to visit Hamamatsu a few years ago. So have you always been interested in the US or like foreign cultures and languages, or is that something that you just happen to fall into?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question because I grew up as a pretty ordinary Japanese girl in a regional city that many people in the US have not heard of. So I wasn't raised in a particularly multicultural environment, actually. Um, and when I was 13, when I got into junior high school, I actually started taking English as a required course. And at first, I actually wasn't good at it. I actually probably got like one of the worst grades in the class. And I was struggling with that. But I was able to, I was fortunate enough to meet this tutor, juku teacher, cram school teacher, and she really taught me in a way that I could really clearly understand. And thanks to her, I went from a poor performer to a top of the class performer when it came to English. And that really incited my passion for learning this language. And I really wanted to learn as much as I could. And I was, you know, really eager to master the language. So Hamamatsu is known for a lot of industrial factories and businesses like Suzuki, Honda, Yamaha, and
Mm.
there is some cultural influence, such as workers that come from other countries like Brazil. But other than that, I really kind of grew up in a monocultural environment, and my family really wasn't particularly, international at all.
Okay. So how did you end up coming to the US when you were 16 then?
Yeah, it's a little random. Or you can use this kind of fancier expression like chance encounter. I was really eager to learn English, as I said. And when I was 14, I read this magazine article that pretty much transformed the trajectory of my life. I read about this Japanese girl who was studying abroad in high school in the United States.
Mm.
And I remember I was surprised and also envious that she was watching Hollywood movies in English without subtitles. And I instantly knew that I wanted to do the same thing then and there. So that's how I ended up choosing a high school that would allow me to do the study abroad for a year. And when I was 16, um, I went to upstate New York to live with an American family and go to a local high school in this small town called Canton, New York. Um, but it wasn't it didn't have to be the US actually, because through this program, AFS is the exchange program, I could have gone to other places. And in fact, I was supposed to go to Finland for a
Hmm.
year and somehow learn Finnish, which sounds quite difficult right
Wow.
now. But
Hmm.
um, with 9/11 happening just months before I went to the
Hmm.
US, a lot of people decided not to pursue it anymore and created an opening for me to go to the US. And that's, again, another chance encounter being in the US and of all places in upstate New York, which sounded a little scary, I'm sure, most of all to my parents, just months after 9/11.
Yeah, that is incredible that so many different forces came into play and you just happened to end up in the US. And so, did you say that you studied Finnish before going? You were planning on going to Finland. So, did you study Finnish a little bit before that?
I did not even study
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
Before I could obtain a very rare Finnish textbook, the trajectory also shifted to
Mhm.
go to the US instead.
Mhm.
So I didn't end up learning Finnish and find out just how difficult it might be.
Okay, okay, well, that's great. I think that's a really tough time to go to a foreign country. I think a lot of people have so much courage to be able to do that because high school is already a difficult period to begin with. Everyone is going through their teenage years. You're feeling awkward, your body's changing, your emotions are changing, all that. Did you have any difficulty fitting in the very beginning in New York? And if so, how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I had difficulty fitting in for sure, especially because I was this foreign person in a small town where seemingly everybody grew up together. I was also one of the very few non-white minority person, so just culturally very different. But it's funny because people say, "Oh, you're so brave," but okay, I think courageous means you act despite fears.
Mm,
And in my case, I was more fearless. Like I wasn't scared
mhm,
because I was just so determined. I was such a determined person. I wanted to do this. I wanted to maximize this year. I wanted to master this language. And I was just like a friend of mine just described me the other day, like, you're a determined person. I am
mm,
very determined, so I was just very like hyper focused. So I wasn't brave. Of course, I was new to like I think if you enter a high school where everybody else grew up together but you,
mm,
regardless of whether or not you're a high school student, a high school exchange student, yes, it's hard, right, to make friends. But I was just busy trying to maximize the year. So I was joining all the clubs I could. I did lacrosse, I did
wow.
dance, I did choir, I did announcement club, and I was like reading the lunch menu, even though English was not my first language. So I
Mm,
did everything I could get my hands on and to make the most of it. And I also during that time, like really stopped speaking Japanese because I was
mm,
so focused. I didn't want to distract myself. So I stopped speaking Japanese except for the very occasional phone calls that I had with my parents. I journaled in English
mm,
and I was in the safety of my host parents and my host brother, um, who gave me, even more experiences at home. So, you know, I was just really focused and yes, it was hard. I mean, imagine reading American history book and it's this thick.
mhm.
I was overwhelmed, no doubt. But yeah, I think when you focus on something, everything else kind of just, fades into the background.
Mm, mhm. That is incredible. I think I admire you so much, especially where you mentioned how you joined every club you could, including sports and everything. I think that's so interesting because, well, as an introvert, like I have a hard time imagining doing that. It's already difficult for like to put myself out there, and I can't imagine joining all these clubs, um, having to speak in a foreign language. I'm really blown away. I really, really admire you so much.
I admire you for your qualities.
Oh,
We're
thank you.
quite different. We share, the same industry and profession, but you have your strengths and I have mine, and they show up differently, right?
Hmm, hmm. So you said that you were studying abroad for a year. So did you go back to Japan after that?
I
And then,
did.
okay, so you graduated high school in Japan and then came back to college in the US. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So one of the the key criteria that I was looking for in a university or the city that I would live in was that it would be warm. Because when I lived in upstate New York, it was really cold and I just don't like the cold. But also importantly, if I was going to be sort of independent and on my own, I knew I had to live somewhere that I didn't need to learn to drive in the snow, which I didn't know how to do. So warmth was important. And I chose the University of Houston because it's also in a big city. That was the other criterion. Well, it
Mm,
turns out I was a little misguided. I didn't have a, guidance counselor that was guiding me. I was on princetonreview.com every night, figuring out what school I wanted to go to. So
mm,
I was just kind of doing this on my own. And I had no idea just because in the United States, the city is big, doesn't mean it comes with public transportation and, no need for, driving. I definitely have to drive in Houston. So I chose Houston because of affordable. The university was had a lot of different majors. So if I wanted to change majors, I could change without having to transfer. Like those are the things that I was thinking about. And also I was attracted to the diversity of the university itself and also the city.
I wanted to ask a little bit more about why you decided to major in public relations and communications.
Yeah. So when I got into the University of Houston, and I had to choose a major just from the get-go. Um, And it's funny when you think about our careers, many of us decide what to do, often uninformed at the age of 18, 17,
Yeah.
whatever, right? That
Hmm.
was very much the case for me because I just said, oh, I love communicating. Let me major in communications.
Okay.
So that's kind of the extent of my consideration in terms of choosing communications. It just worked out because I guess it suited my personality in many ways.
Mhm.
And I met um, this wonderful friend and a graduate student at the time at the University of Houston who was focused on PR, public relations. And I learned more about public relations and I said, oh, that sounds cool. I think
Mm.
I might do that. So again, another chance encounter that kind of led me to get curious and try that path. And I pursued it for the last 20 years. So, clearly it was a good enough fit for me. And yeah, I mean, it is, as you said, a language intensive path.
Mhm.
So no, I was not good at writing at first, but I wrote a lot, and over time I became better. And I also was not good at, I used to get feedback from my bosses that I wasn't strategic enough, that I was
Mm.
lacking strategic thinking um, in my 20s. But even then, after enough practice, I was told, you are one of the most strategic people. So, like, we can learn things.
I'd like to ask a little bit more about the public relations part, but before we go on, I wanted to come back to your college experience just a little bit more because your other major was in Spanish, I understand, and you studied abroad in Chile and Mexico. And with Chile, I understand that you had a prior connection with your host sister. So would you mind explaining a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. I love this story because after I spent a year in upstate New York, through the same AFS exchange program, my family in Japan hosted a student from Chile for 1 year. So that was my last year in high school. And my host sister, Poli, she went to a local Japanese high school, only girls' high school at it, and it was a Catholic school. And I didn't go to her school, but we were both basically juniors, seniors in high school at the same time. And in college, I decided to take an elective and learn Spanish because I quickly realized in Houston, Spanish was commonly spoken.
Hmm.
And I guess there was some sort of interest in language at the time. This was, the third language that I would try. And I loved it. I really enjoyed learning, and I wanted to communicate again and connect with more people. So then I decided, oh, well, why don't I study abroad? Because that is the best way to learn the language and really, get better at it. So there was no better place than going to Chile and be with Poli's family in Santiago, Chile. Um, and that's how we ended up. And Poli and I are still really good friends and sisters. And, we've been to each other's weddings and been on trips together. We talk regularly on the phone, and I'm planning to go see her later this year as well in Chile.
Oh, that's so wonderful. You have this incredible friendship that spanned decades. And you're both trilingual, I guess.
Yeah, so she and I also our fourth language. I'm learning French right now, and
Oh my gosh.
she's learned it a little bit.
Mhm.
So yes, so we can speak in four languages. So we can code switch all we want, and we're the only people that we know of that can speak all those languages together.
That is so incredible. That's really cool. Okay, so now going back to your communications and PR career, I understand that one of your first jobs in communications full time was at Moody Gardens. And I didn't know what that was. I looked it up and I found that it was an amusement park, which sounds like a really, really fun job. So would you mind talking a little bit about your PR experience there? It must have been really, really cool.
Yeah, so um, I graduated from college in 2008, just after the financial crisis. So the job market was very tight. Especially starting out in PR was pretty challenging.
Mm.
And I had the fortune of finding a job in Galveston, Texas, where Moody Gardens is located. It's about an hour outside of Houston. And so I make this tough 62-mile commute each way every day, so 120
Oh my
miles
God.
each day, um, and sort of uh, trek that every day. That's part of paying the dues of, an entry level PR person.
Mm.
So Moody Gardens is a multi kind of complex of golf course, hotel, resort, sort of museum type things, movie theaters, kind of everything in one place, complex. And yes, but I scored a PR job right out of college, which is, remarkable, I think, in retrospect, especially after the financial crisis. I served as a spokesperson for Moody Gardens in English and Spanish. One of the reasons why I was able to get a job here was because I spoke Spanish. So
Mm.
it really did serve me. And yeah, it is a fun job. I hung out with penguins,
Mm.
so I
That's
mean,
so
how
cool.
cool is that, right? And my memory from this first job is often getting on the road, going to different cities around Texas and Louisiana to promote Moody Gardens. I would actually uh, go on the road with a biologist and an animal. It could be a bird, it could be a snake.
Wow. Uh-huh.
So yeah, that's my memory of Moody Gardens and the first 2 years of my career.
That is really, really fun. That's amazing. And then I understand that after that, you went to Fleischman Hillard, which of course is one of the premier communications PR firms in the world. And I'm sure that was a really big transition going to a really large, like global company, and also the fact that you are now in a like full-time PR firm, which has many different clients. Would you mind explaining a little bit about the transition there?
Sure. So it turns out I actually had the fortune of interning there my senior year of college.
Okay.
And then I went to Moody Gardens for 2 years, and then I sort of returned when the market opened up a little bit, staffing needs increased. So I went sort of back to Fleischman Hillard.
Mm.
Um, and again, one of the reasons why I was able to get the internship in the first place, back when I was a senior in college, was because the Houston office of Fleischman Hillard was active at doing a lot of multicultural work for clients like AT&T. So they were using multiple Asian languages and cultural, understanding, and then also Spanish and, understanding of, um, the needs and the wants of the Latin American clients. So it was actually sort of my way into this very uh, big PR agency at the time, which I just again was very lucky to be able to do that. But Fleischman Hillard for me, I spent about 8 years total. Was a great place for me to learn and really be sort of inducted into the world of communications, multidisciplined communications. It's like going to get your degree in communications, it feels like, because
Mm,
you're really getting to work on all these brands and many of the brands that, we all know. I worked on AT&T, Chevy, and, here in Houston, Rice University, these different brands that you recognize. And you also get to do all sorts of different communications
mm,
disciplines. So that really gave me a good, firm foundation of what communications could be. Um, and even then, I snagged an opportunity to do a 2 month stint in Hong Kong
mm,
and work out of the Fleischman Hillard office of Hong Kong for 2 months. And towards the end of my career there, I was able to work on the account and lead the account of Mitsubishi Heavy Industries at the time, which felt really special for me because here I was, from my understanding, I was the only US based Fleischman Hillard employee that spoke Japanese and
mm,
also understood the American business environment and the culture. And I was able to help a Japanese company that, everybody knows in Japan, expand to the global market, not just to the US, but around the globe. And I remember, I think my father was, who's by the way still based in Japan,
mm,
was proud of me, but I think he was particularly excited that his daughter was working on an account for a company that he recognized, and he
mhm,
really appreciated the value of.
mhm. That is incredible, and I'm sure that the Mitsubishi Heavy people really, really appreciated you because I'm sure this is a rare opportunity, and they just so happen to be able to find someone who is a great expert in their field, but also is fluent in both languages. That is really, really great. And I remember when I first met you, I think you were working at Fleischmann Hillard, and you were vice president at the time, and I was just amazed because here is someone who's in their like late 20s, early 30s, already a vice president at this huge global firm in communications, and she learned English afterwards. And I was just like, oh my God, who is this person? I would love to get to know her. So I'm really, really excited that I get to interview you today. um, Anyway, so you said that there's a lot of variety, which sounds really exciting. But after that, you actually went back to becoming an in-house communications expert at Accenture and Tata. So I was wondering, did you feel more comfortable working in-house and focusing on one company, or what was the reasoning behind that transition there?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we go through different phases of our career and of our life. So it felt right to go into, an in-house role at that time. I was kind of early 30s at that time. And I loved being able to represent one brand. I loved the variety in my 20s, but I also loved the focus that I was able to have and really kind of get to know deeply a particular brand. And I also love that these two companies, Accenture and Tata Consultancy Services, were both very global. Fleischman Hillard was global too, and I was able to do some of the global work, especially towards the end of my career. But I knew that was something that I was just really eager to do. And these two companies that I got to work for in my 30s were both very, very global, and being able to work with colleagues from around the world on a daily basis really excited me. Um, yeah, I think neither is better in terms of, is it better to focus in-house or in an agency environment? I think we have different phases, and you know, they have different ways of serving you at different times of our lives.
Hmm. Okay, that makes sense. And after that, you decided to transition into coaching. So I'd like to ask a little bit more about that. Like, what was the incentive to go into a completely different field, and what are you doing now?
What was the incentive? Why would you do that?
No,
Um,
I'm sorry, that's not what I meant.
no,
What what was the motivation?
yeah, no, it's such a good question, though, Shiori. Um, I guess in short, I couldn't help not to do it. So here I am, leaving a 20-year career
Hmm.
in what seems to be a successful, field,
Hmm.
what was successful to me. Um,
Absolutely.
and I'm leaving that, right? I think a few things happened. So one is I had a coach for myself to navigate these gigantic global organizations. And I personally benefited from having a coach, uh, really changed the way I showed up at work, the way I managed up, the way I showed up and started to see myself as a leader. So I knew coaching was very impactful, and I loved being coached. Um, and then what is interesting, though, is it's very different from being a coach yourself.
Mm.
Um, it just so happens that my previous employer was offering a coaching training internally to its people, and I had the opportunity to participate. But even then, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it because I'd like to be coached. Um,
Mm.
but I am a very curious person,
Hmm.
and I was really curious how it works because it just so, it had such a big impact on me. So I tried that training program, and I became a workplace coach internally at the company. And through that process, and as I was coaching more and more people internally and externally, I realized it was just too cool not to do it. I saw
Mm.
people change the trajectory of their careers and sometimes lives. People, started a new education program, or, came back from a maternity leave and really renewed their focus on, hunkering down their career, or, changed jobs. And some people changed their like family environments as a result of it too. So I felt so gratified to see the impact so closely. Um, and I just I just couldn't help but to do it. But what's interesting, Shiori, I think, is what what I've done in my career, in my life, and also just kind of who I am really
Hmm.
put me where I am today in a way that I didn't expect. Because if you think about learning languages, um, funnily enough, when you first start learning it, you're not good at speaking it, right? So
Hmm.
you, well, in my case, I would ask questions and I let
Mm.
the other person talk. So I'm a
Mm.
good listener because I learned to be a patient listener. And and then I also, so PR communications, one of the key things you do in communications is to really distill, this large, complex concept
Hmm.
into a few essential words.
Hmm.
And doing that and to be able to reflect those essential words of what my coachee is saying is really valuable in coaching.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
and I love learning about different people, diverse cultures. That made me more accepting to see different perspectives and being okay with, not just landing on one. Like there's multiple ways of doing things, and they're
Mm.
all good. They're all fine. Um, and oh, and also I learned to be a yoga teacher. I'm a mindfulness practitioner, and that also serves in coaching because being grounded when we're exploring new thoughts is important. And coaching, I think, when I say coaching, because coaching can mean so many different things to different people, but the way I learn to coach and the way I coach people is to really see the individual, the coachee, as somebody who's resourceful, creative, smart, and whole, somebody that does not need fixing.
Mm,
So it's really, so like we can't see the back of our head. We just don't have eyes to see that.
mm,
And to partner with somebody and helping them see the things that they can't see because simply we just can't. Um, I think that's such an honor. And I love it because it's just the beauty of humanity. We
mm,
all need each other. So often these days, it's not about having enough information because information's abundant. You can look it up super
mhm,
easily,
mhm,
but it's about like, I don't know, losing weight or whatever. Like, we all know what to do to lose weight, but it's about doing what we say we want to do and being able to follow through that gets us to where we want to go. And I think to do that, we need perspective, we need clarity, and we need the courage to continue to take that next most important step forward. Or you can take detours, but still moving forward towards that direction. Um, so I think coaching really demonstrates this connectivity amongst us and
mhm.
also our innate wisdom that we all possess that I get to help people really get in touch with and activate. And as you can probably tell, I get super passionate about it.
I love it.
I love it, and I think it just works, Jody.
Mhm, mhm. That is so cool. Are you focusing on a specific type of coaching, like career or personal life, or all of it, and all sorts of like age range and experience? Or
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for asking because this coaching philosophy that I practice technically works on any issue on anybody. But at the end of the day, who am I able to serve best? I
mm,
think people who can relate to me and resonate with me ultimately will be the best served. So I do have this, as we talked about, multicultural background, and I spent 20 years in corporate America and corporate global. I also spent 20 years in marketing and communications, and some of the companies that I spent the last decade were IT and consulting. So there's different threads that we all come to. And my goal is to help these professionals primarily who are maybe stuck in their careers or maybe overwhelmed to get to where they want to go. Um, get the clarity they need and take the steps they need that helps them um, build confidence along the way,
mhm,
so they can get closer to where they want to go. Um, and I really think this is sort of a grandiose idea that I talk about, but I really think when you, Shiori, when you are at your best, then you're a positive impact to people around you. That's your
mm,
family, your friends, your coworkers, your organization. And that's really powerful. I know this is just one person, but the society that we live in, it's made up of individuals like us. So I
mhm,
think the more we each are at our best, the better. It creates a better like world, I think. So that's why I'm super passionate about this.
mhm, mhm. Thank you so much. I love interviewing people who made a big pivot in their career. How did you build up the courage to leave something, as you mentioned, that you were so successful at and go into a new unknown world? Like we could talk about practical things like did you ensure that you had enough savings? Like, did you try to network and take exams and courses like before you left your job? And also, like, more emotional side, like, how did you build up that courage, if you don't mind?
Yeah, yeah. So I think I started to feel so emotionally first. I think it started to feel like the same level of desire that I had for studying abroad.
Mm,
And based on my experience, when I'm that determined, I will make it happen.
that's so
So,
cool.
determined, again, I guess that's just a trait of mine. So, it was almost like too risky not to do it. So emotionally, I was able to get there, even though, yeah, it's scary. Entrepreneurship is full of things I've never done before.
Mhm.
But I know that something big also is made up of small steps. So, you just take each step and you'll just have to keep going at it, right? From a more practical standpoint, yes, financial planning was important. Turns out my partner husband is a financial advisor, so
Oh, okay.
that's, I'm very fortunate from that standpoint. So we've been saving for a long time. Um, and so I had a, you know, small certification to coach in the beginning, primarily internally, but I also went out to get a certification um, by the International Coaching Federation. So
Mm,
I pursued that as part of this education, and I'm continuing to learn. And that's my goal is to learn every day for as long as I coach to be a better coach, today than yesterday and tomorrow than today, because I just want to be better service to other people. Um, and yeah, I'm still learning a lot about, running a business because that is not something that I aspire to do, run all sorts of things. I mean,
mhm.
accounting, legal, administration. I mean, these are not really like in my wheelhouse. So, but it's an adventure and it comes with a territory and you know, I'm I'm enjoying I'm enjoying building something from scratch and along the way really getting to connect with people. So I'm loving that process.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And one of the things we talked about is your wonderful company name, Confidently Clear Coaching. And so I wanted to ask a little bit more about confidence. And I think there's so much in common with what we talked about in terms of having courage and determination, because that's what makes you have the confidence to go on, to believe in yourself. And also having that past experience helps you believe in yourself. So the more risks you take and the more you succeed, it's actually helpful as well. But would you mind talking a little bit about how you instill confidence in your clients?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I read a lot of social science books and, I learned a lot about confidence also. And that was something, people tell me I look confident, but like you're not confident in every area of your life,
Mm,
right? So
mm,
you could be confident in, I don't know, speech writing, but you might not be confident as a parent. I don't know. So there's different areas. So I think we all have that struggle to a degree, many of us anyway. Um, but confidence, one of the definitions that I learned is it's the stuff that helps you take action. Um, but the funny thing is, if you don't have confidence, how are you going to take the action and
exactly.
build the confidence on top of it, right? So a few tips is so one is if, as I said earlier, if the goal looks insurmountable, too big, then the best thing to do is to actually take an action that seems actually manageable but still a little scary.
Mm,
um because that pushes you to do something outside of your comfort zone that moves you forward. It also gives you a lesson of wow, I did it even though it felt scary. So actually taking a bite size at a time and
mm,
still challenging yourself is important. The other thing that is important is actually trying um, to imagine the worst case scenario of that challenge that the risk that you're taking. Like, what is the worst thing that can happen? When you actually ask that question and answer it, oftentimes it's actually something that's quite survivable. So if that, can you survive it? And can you suffer the consequence and still be okay? If the answer is yes, you are much more clear to be able to go ahead.
Mm.
And kind of similar to that is also so these feelings of fear, anxiety, they feel really bad in our bodies. So
Mm.
our instinct is to actually avoid them. We don't like feeling them. So we try to distract ourselves often, right? Like watch
Mm-hmm.
TV or scroll on your phone or so many other things that can distract us. But actually taking a pause and actually feeling it and asking that fear or anxiety or what have you, like, what are you trying to tell me? And what are you trying to protect me from? Um, and trying to actually examine that fear, it actually gives us a different perspective. And different perspective is often what we need. And you already said this, Yori, remembering your strengths.
Mm.
And, you know, if you're listening to this, I'm guessing you have multicultural identities, or maybe you don't, but every one of us has overcome something. And when you overcome something, you had to lean on your strengths. Some strengths were activated that helped you get through that difficult situation. So you have them. You have some sort of strengths. They may not look like mine. Shiori, you have very different set of strengths from me, right? But at the end of the day, we have tools within us, and remembering that, and remembering the proof that you were able to use those skills in the past. So thinking about those times and kind of reapplying those skills and strengths that we've got, that's really helpful, I think. So taking these small steps is important. Now, all of this that I talked about is actually hard because
Mm-hmm.
it requires spaciousness and the ability to take a pause. So that's why I think practices like mindfulness on a regular basis and it's going to come in handy. Mindfulness practice is not something that you do at the peak of your difficulty. It's
Mm.
something you do in case of those moments arriving,
Okay.
and working with other people, like getting perspective from your friend, your parent, your uh, colleague, or in some cases, coaches, to again give you a different perspective. It does help you to find, um, your getting in touch with your strengths and remembering that you've got it.
Thank you so much. That's all really, really helpful and practical tips. I love what you said about bite-sized challenges. I think that's such a great way to put it. And the fact that we can imagine the worst case scenario. I also love what you said about always being introspective and trying to meditate and think about your strengths on a daily basis, just in case, as opposed to when it's most difficult to you. I totally see that. I have this meditation app that I only turn to when I'm full of anxiety, and I know just like I'm not seeing results in 3 days. What's going on? But like that's not how it works. Um,
I mean, it helps in the moment too, but if you would
yeah,
actually
somewhat.
get into the crisis moment, it's helpful to have it kind of already in the system.
Right. That's true. That's true. And I wanted to turn to um, some of the community work that you've been doing, and one of them is Toastmasters International. So to illustrate how fluent you are in Spanish, you were the head of the Spanish-speaking Toastmasters Club in Houston. Would you mind talking a little bit about your work there?
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know if that demonstrates any how fluent I am, but I was in Toastmasters, which is a leadership and public speaking club, for about 8 years. And I I started it actually because I wanted to be a better spokesperson in Spanish and presenting in Spanish because obviously it wasn't my native language.
Mhm.
And it definitely helped me do that. And it helped me kind of maintain Spanish because I don't speak it every day. What it does, what it did for me is actually getting comfortable and habituated
Mm.
uh, to being uncomfortable.
I love that.
Because I was uncomfortable, I'll tell you, because I had to lead this club and give impromptu speeches in Spanish, and I don't have the vocabulary to
Mm.
fully express myself. So yeah, it's uncomfortable. Um, but it gave me the practice of just constantly being uncomfortable because let me tell you, even though people tell me I look confident and whatever, like it doesn't mean I don't feel nervous.
Mm.
But even if I'm feeling nervous, I can still do the work that's needed.
Mhm.
And serving as the president of the club, I wanted to give back to the community
Mhm.
that has long supported me. So I did that. It was uncomfortable, but you know, it's desensitization process or
Mhm.
exposure therapy, so to speak.
Mhm. And I see that you have comfortable being uncomfortable, the motto right behind you. So I guess it's one of the words that you live by.
Yes, yes, it really is. Because that's that zone of discomfort,
Mhm.
and I think I'm learning and moving forward. And I think that's again having a better relationship with this discomfort or fear or whatever you feel. I think kind of reframing that and rewiring your brain to think differently about them. I think it's really important in making things happen in our lives.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to change gears a little bit and ask about your family. So you mentioned that your last name is Wong, and I think you mentioned that you're married to a Chinese American individual. Um, so I was wondering if there are any multicultural aspects at your home, like perhaps you have different dishes that you cook that, like some dishes that you may cook might be Japanese and maybe he cooks Chinese.
Yeah, well, I guess it is very multicultural. So my husband's Chinese American, and he grew up in Houston or the Houston area. And his father is from Hong Kong.
Mm,
And his mom's also Chinese American. So it's an interesting mix of cultures there as well. Um, yeah, I guess it does show up in like the dishes that we make. And I bring different cultural backgrounds to it. And
mm,
while I am Japanese living in America, I also lived in Chile. And, through learning these different languages, I'm also bringing in different things to the table, actual table. And also, my husband actually doesn't speak Chinese.
mm.
Um, and he's actually learning Japanese.
Oh,
So,
mhm,
yeah, so but it's tricky. Intimate partners, it's really hard to teach the other person things, especially languages. It's a very sensitive territory. Um,
mm.
but it's pretty cool to be able to share my culture, for him to be able to understand the Japanese culture better because of his process of learning the language as well.
Mhm, mhm. That is really cool, how you grew up in a completely different environment, but that you have a lot in common and also and that you get along so well. And that's really inspiring as well. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that. So my last question is, would you have any advice for anyone else who might be thinking about or struggling with their identities or thinking about what sort of career to pursue, where to be based, etc., and being torn about those decisions because they have ties to multiple countries?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's an interesting question, and I think um Yeah, it's so first of all, I don't come from a place of an expert. Like, let me tell you, because I also struggle with that too.
Mhm.
I have long struggled with that actually in a way that I didn't even realize. So we already talked about just how determined I can get. But like determination also comes with hyper focus. Hyper focus on other people's cultures, languages, and other people in general can also come at the cost of kind of denying my own or ignoring my culture, my language, and really kind of, zooming in so much and not seeing the rest of it. Um, and also for me, that was entangled with this, early career experience of trying to prove myself, trying to make
Mhm.
it in the United States, making it in this language intensive field that, you know, where I was using English as my second language. It will never be my first language. So there was a lot of that tension and I think I was very focused, maybe too much. And as I'm thinking about this new decade, um, it's actually about really embracing both yin and yang. Like it's not
Mhm.
just taking taking in and being whatever it is that I think everybody wants me to be, but also giving, sharing me, and sharing my culture. Like who I am is undeniably influenced by where I grew up and how I grew up. Um, so I want to balance that more as I, go into this new decade. Um, and I think the theme at the center of this all is authenticity.
Mhm.
And I'm grappling with that too. Like what is authentic to me? Um, and Shiori, I really want to thank you for having me today because one of the things that I really wanted to do today, and I spent my 20 years in PR, so I've been in front of cameras, but I've never represented myself. So this
Mhm.
is a new experience for me, and a little scary. But I thought that it was important for me to do this. And so we can come up with this like public facade, as I said, like representing somebody that I thought people wanted me to be. And it's a protective layer that we use. That may have been very useful in certain circumstances of our lives and may still be in the future. Um, but I think being authentic also is rewarding because one, it feels peaceful if you can be there without all these scary risks. And also, it also helps us connect with other people profoundly. So I think there's a lot of reward to being authentic. So, something that I've been thinking about, and I invite other people, multicultural people or not, to consider is curiosity about this. So, is the circumstance, the context that we are in right at this moment, is it actually as scary as it seems?
Mhm.
Um, and actually kind of getting analytical about it. Like, are these real risks? Or, like if it presents a physical, danger, yeah, maybe do pretend to be that person because the reward of being authentic is probably not worth, the physical harm you get.
Mhm.
But oftentimes when you question this, it's just maybe an emotional risk. But can you survive that emotional risk? Maybe, maybe not. If it, triggers deep emotional trauma that you're not ready to face, maybe that's not the moment to do it. Maybe we need to kind of detangle that a little bit. But I think it's a case by case decision, but the deep, profound connections that you can actually build for being who you are, I think that's super rewarding. And I want to say, I am somebody who became multicultural by choice. Like I could
Mm,
have stayed in Japan and not, stayed monocultural because that's how I grew up. I mean, I don't know, maybe I couldn't have because I couldn't have helped but to do it. But I
mhm.
think we're lucky to have this experience. Multicultural backgrounds are beautiful. You get to see the world in so many different ways, and it's you can see it as a challenge, but you can also see it as an opportunity. And I think that is what I want to invite people to do is like, what is the opportunity that we have uniquely because of who we are?
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That really resonates with me as well. And when you said how in the very beginning when we just started to like settle in the US, I think so many of us try to erase or ignore or forget part of the culture that we came from. Like, this is something that I went through, and some other speakers, some other interviewees mentioned as well. And we are so much happier when we come full circle and embrace both cultures at the same time, I think. And I think that's what helps us become authentic as well. And so I really appreciate what you said about being yourself. And I'm so glad I got to interview you today because, as you said, if this is a rare opportunity to hear you speak for yourself, I think this is a amazing chance for me as well to get to hear your story directly. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity, and it's been fun.